Before I get started with this video, I want to give a big shout out to Selaya and to Shizel for helping me set this up. A lot of questions that I had because I haven't raid led in a long time. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to both of them, and hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hey guys, Funkymusic here, and today I want to talk about the optimal 25-man raid setup, specifically for Icecrown Citadel. Before I begin to break down the setup, I want everyone to know that this list can be changed out. I'm not saying this is a definitive list which you must use or you suck. This list will simply give you the most buffs and around about the most classes you'll want to take in order to min-max for your best DPS and survival. This is why this list excludes something like a double of one class or another class entirely due to lower DPS. This list is also dependent on your guild's roster and who you have available. If needs be, even some of these can be swapped out for other classes as they do the same thing roughly. Another self-critique of this list would be that some fights you may want to swap out to a more specific DPS or healing class. A good example of this would be Cindy, where you might want to have 1 to 2 extra healers due to the unchained magic abilities she casts. Again, I'm not saying this is the definitive raid setup, but I do believe it is what you should be aiming for, as the setup maximizes to use the right buffs and classes in order to min-max DPS and healing. Main tank, off tank. This can be done with any class, honestly. However, most guilds tend to roll DK or Bear for the main tank and Paladin as the off tank. This is due to the ICC debuff and the stam stacking that is used to get around it. It also has to do with the cooldowns and frequency of use, as well as what class has the biggest health pool. DKs by far provide the most cooldowns of any tank, so they are able to almost constantly pop one when in trouble or when they know trouble is coming. They also have the added benefit of bringing a lot of raid buffs to increase DPS, and thus can allow you to shed lower DPS specs and classes for higher ones. Bears have the biggest health pool to draw on. Both have high armor as well. Again, I am not saying warriors and paladins cannot main tank here. I've been in plenty of raids where they have a solo tanked Lich King. The off tank as a paladin is mostly due to the fact that they bring sanctuary buff and because they have so many good ways to hold aggro on AoE mobs versus other classes. On Lich King they are especially good since they can stun shamblings if they need to buy time to wait on a heal or for a hunter's trank shot. Healers: 1 Holy Paladin, 1 Resto Shaman, 1 Disc Priest, and either a Druid or a Holy Priest in the 4th slot. Now, while I still personally feel that Disc is optional minus Lich King, I cannot ignore the amount of help they provide with raid bubbles. Why wouldn't you take a double of a class? Again, as I said before, having 2 of something is bad in some cases due to the fact that you are getting no additional buffs, and some might be double buffing such as Shamans overriding each other in Earthshield. The 4th slot here is optional, as both Resto Druids and Holy Priests can provide you with raiding healing options. Although I give the edge to the Resto Druid only because of Revitalize and its ability to offer more DPS. I think both, however, are valid. Now, of course, once you reach even better gear, you could do this with even less healers and more DPS. Range DPS. For range, you'll want 2 Hunters, 3 Mages, either 1 to 2 Boomkins, 2 Shadow Priests, and either 1 to 2 Locks. Okay, Funky, why 1 to 2 Boomkins and 1 to 2 Locks? Well, this depends on what you want for the most part. Having a second Lock, assuming that the first one is Demo, would mean getting an Affliction Lock, who does bring a nice buff to the raid with Fell Intelligence. However, Boomkins also provide another knockback and great AoE damage, as well as another battle res. So the choice is yours to make. Always plan accordingly to what boss your guild is either having trouble with, or a boss that more range /healer /melee would be better off with due to the mechanics. Why no Ellie Shamans? Ellie is unfortunately so low in DPS, and they bring nothing to the raid that Resto can't provide with totems. While Ellie can root with totems, which is really nice, it only is useful for one boss, and that being Deathbringer Saurfang for the Blood Beast, which should not be an issue anyways. Melee DPS. For the melee, you'll want 2 to 3 warriors, or 2 to 3 rets, 2 rogues, 1 feral, 1 unholy DK, and 0 to 1 frost DKs depending on if one of the tanks is blood or not. Why no enhance? While they can provide a little stronger version of a DK's Horn of Winter buff, assuming the enhance is spec'd for it, that tiny fraction won't help as much as, say, another warrior or ret, since there is such a difference in warrior's DPS versus enhanced shaman's DPS, and rets also bring a lot of utility as well as better DPS. Why 0 to 1 frost DKs? Well, that all depends on your tanks. If one of them is blood, they should already have the melee haste buff, thus you won't need a frost DK. If you do not have a blood DK, frost would be the better option over an enhanced shaman, as again, the DPS is higher, than the slight improvement that Enhance will have with its version of Horn of Winter buff. In closing, guys, this is again the optimal setup, and not what you must use or riot. It is to help those players in guilds using 4 DKs, 3 rogues, and all these crazy setups who would be better off swapping them out for different classes and providing more raid-wide buffs, thus increasing the overall raid DPS, or swapping to better DPS classes to also increase the DPS of the raid. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what your guys' setups would be. Why would you stick a certain class in there? What do you guys like to run? Please leave me down in the comments below, and as always, guys, have a good one.